Welcome to the Creepin' It Real show, your one-stop shop for weird news, spooky, otherworldly, and paranormal shenanigans. We'll take a dive into what's going on in creepy pop culture. You can follow us on Twitter at creepin_it and like us on Facebook at The Creepin' It Real Show. Do you have a paranormal story you'd like to share with us? You can email us at creepinitrealshow@gmail.com. Well, if everybody is ready, then we will get this party started.
Woohoo!
I am 1/3 of your host for this day, morning, evening, whatever is happening. Christy from the northern burbs of Atlanta. And joining me in Atlanta is Yardley. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It was actually kind of warm today, so that was pretty pleasant.
70.
Yeah, so outside of that, I don't have anything to complain about.
Well, that's good. How about you, Moni? How are you doing over in SoCal?
I'm good. I am going to be going on some spooky adventures soon. I came into possession of some property in New Mexico, Christy, of all places.
Where?
Las Cruces area.
Oh my gosh, that's not far from Roswell.
Yeah, so I am going to get some coverage for the kids next month, and we're going to take a road trip just to see this property, and we're going to visit some areas that are haunted in Arizona and anywhere else we can find, possibly Texas along the way.
You definitely need to go to White Sands because, well, Texas is not on the way, but okay. I'm like, wait a minute. But you can go keep going and pass through New Mexico and go to Texas. But New Mexico, you got to go to White Sands. That's where they used to test all the nuclear bombs and turned all the sand like snow white, and it's fun to go and play in. And
yeah, I'm open to suggestions from our listeners too, so let me know where I should be going.
Awesome. Well, I had an interesting thing happen to me today before we get started on our topic of the week. Is I was driving down the highway on my way home from the office, and out of nowhere, this giant 4-foot long thing of metal plowed into my car. And it was thrown up into the air. And I don't know if it came from a vehicle or if it was on the ground, and then a truck hit it and it launched it into the air. And it sliced into the front of my vehicle, and I'm just really thankful that it didn't slice into my windshield and do some sort of damage to me. So that was an interesting situation. Yikes. And I'm drinking some champagne and was really I'm going to have such a professional conversation tonight about science. And now I'm just ugh.
Happy to be alive.
Yeah,
exactly.
If I'm a little out of it, that's why. So it seems like I bought a new car a couple of years ago. I guess it's been 2 years now, almost 2 years in July. And it's like it's a magnet for shit. Things that aren't even my fault. I got rear-ended the first month I drove it.
Shit.
And then other things have happened where stuff's hit my car. And we hadn't even acted on the last claim that we made of road debris hitting my car. And now we got the mother of all fucking road debris hitting my car. Huge. It was this giant 4-foot long, 1 foot wide, and a fourth of a, inch thick, piece of metal just flying up in the air. So anyway, yep. That happened.
Happy you're here with us. Yes.
Yes. And cheers. I'm having some champagne, and we're gonna get through this. So today we're gonna talk about bioterrorism and biowarfare. And as I was reading and studying all of this, there is a difference throughout history. And surprisingly, it goes all the way back to 600 BC. So I didn't realize that they were that aware of stuff that way, but apparently, yes, they were. I want to go ahead and start my sources. I was reading a lot of science articles from Gutenberg, National Center for Biotechnology Information, Wikipedia, and then Science Direct, all online. So thank you guys for providing such wonderful details on my journey of figuring out what the hell all this is. So along the way, I've made little notations that I will try to explain, because there is a lot of backstory to some of this stuff that I just didn't want to include because it just gets too in depth that we all don't need to know. So I'll try to kind of fill in a few blanks, and you guys feel free to ask any questions, and if I can try to answer them, I will. I'm not no expert by no means, but I have a nice, fresh, little new education on this stuff. And after tonight, when I drink this bottle of champagne, it'll be gone. So let's take advantage of it while we have it.
Sounds good.
Yardley, you want to start us off?
All right, let's talk about what the history of bioterrorism and biowarfare. So the current definition of terrorism emphasizes that its main objective is to threaten and terrorize large groups of humans, governments, armies, or society as a whole. The threat of bioterrorism is real and significant. It is neither in the realm of science fiction nor confined to our nation. So let's get into a...
Real quick, I just want to do kind of the layout of what I did with the show is we're going to talk about biowarfare first. These are all instances of people using contagions in war. And then we're going to flip the script, and later we're going to talk about bioterrorism, where a terrorist group uses these contagions against the government or the people. So you can start. We're going to do a little timeline really quick of the history of biowarfare.
All right, we're going to start off in 600 BC. Solon uses the purgative herb hellebore during the siege of Crisa.
So hellebore is, the symptoms are indigestion, after you ingest it, are burning of the mouth and throat, salivation, vomiting, abdominal cramping, diarrhea, nervous system symptoms, and possibly depression. I'm like, after all of that, I'll take the depression, but consuming large quantities of hellebore plants can be fatal. And by the way, hellebore plants are everywhere. I didn't know this, but when I started looking at them, I was like, I've actually seen those before. So FYI, don't eat hellebore. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, those are the same symptoms of ingesting a Carolina Reaper. Exactly. Yeah. in that exact same order. And I can totally co-sign. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Even the depression at the end, because you're like, wow, why did I even try this thing?
So you're saying our wars, they can just throw some Carolina Reapers in the water and call it a day.
Yeah, pretty much so. I mean, it's kind of funny because the way that the symptoms are, how you have them put down and listed, it's like that exact same order, like when you eat that pepper. So 1155, Emperor Barbarossa poisons water wells with the human bodies in Tortanta, Italy. In 1346, Tartar forces catapult bodies of plague victims over the city walls of Kaffa in the Crimean Peninsula, which is now called Feodosia, Ukraine. In 1495, the Spanish mix wine with blood of leprosy patients to sell to their French foes in Naples, Italy. That's pretty foul.
Shit. Yeah, isn't that crazy? They ain't fucking around, man.
Oh, yeah. You're like, man, this wine is really heavy. It's pretty rich.
Interesting. It's got an interesting aftertaste there. I can't quite put my finger on it. Oh, it's leprosy.
Yeah, that's pretty trifling. So in 1675, German and French forces agree to not use poison bullets. That's a pretty good agreement to have in a conflict, though. Yeah. I mean, you just, yeah, that just makes the gruesome probably even worse. And in 1710, Russian troops catapult human bodies of plague victims into Swedish cities. In 1763, the British distribute blankets from smallpox patients to Native Americans. In 1797, Napoleon floods the plains around Mantua, Italy, to enhance the spread of malaria. In 1863, Confederates sell clothing from yellow fever and smallpox patients to Union troops during the U.S. Civil War.
Yeah, so some of these we're going to discuss, and some of them I just kind of skipped over because they're pretty self-explanatory. But it's interesting to me how far back they figured out that if this human bodies back in 600 or 1155, that they figured out that if they put bodies dying of disease in the water, that they're contaminating the water. That just fascinates me because they have zero comprehension of germs back then. So they're operating on just knowledge of being around one of these dead bodies. You can catch it. So I just find that totally fascinating. They have zero understanding of disease or germs or anything. And they are figuring that shit out pretty quick and using it to their advantage, like in a foul way. So anyway, you can, continue, Bonnie, if you'd like.
Oh, sure. I just wanted to mention too, remember when we were talking about Poveglia Island, how the plague with that started with people throwing the bodies of their infected dead at each other?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yep. And then also, as far as talking about zero understanding, they quarantined for 40 days and did a better job than we are currently doing and staying away from one another with less understanding as to why and how that works.
Yeah, and that's interesting how that works. Oh boy.
Yeah, interesting.
The smarter we are, the dumber we are, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah, sad.
So infectious diseases were recognized for their potential impact on people and armies as early as 600 BC. The crude use of filth and cadavers, animal carcasses, and contagion had devastating effects and weakened the enemy. Polluting wells and other sources of water of the opposing army was a common strategy that continued to be used through the many European wars during the American Civil War and even into the 20th century. Military leaders in the Middle Ages recognized that victims of infectious diseases could become weapons themselves. During the siege of Kaffa, a well-fortified Genoese-controlled seaport, now Ukraine, in 1346, the attacking Tartar force experienced
Tartar.
That's part of their their tooth problems. An epidemic of plague. The Tartars, however, converted their misfortune into an opportunity by hurling the cadavers of their diseased into the city, thus initiating a plague epidemic in the city. The outbreak of the plague followed, reinforcing the retreat of the Genoese forces.
Yeah, so this plague, what they did, it started one of the main plagues that we'll find out, but they started something trying to win this war that ended up being global. The Kaffa incident was described in 1348 or 1349 by Gabriel de Musis, a notary born in Piacenza, north of Genoa. De Musis had two important claims. Plague was transmitted to the citizens of Kaffa by the hurling of diseased cadavers into the besieged city, and Italians fleeing from Kaffa brought the plague onto the Mediterranean seaports. In fact, ships carrying plague-infected refugees sailed to Constantinople, Genoa, Venice, and other Mediterranean seaports, and are thought to have contributed to the second plague pandemic. During the same 14th century plague pandemic, which killed more than 25 million Europeans in the 14th and 15th centuries. Many other incidents indicate the various use of disease and poisons during war. For example, bodies of dead soldiers were catapulted into the ranks of the enemy in the Karlstein in 1422. A similar strategy using cadavers of plague victims was utilized in 1710 during the battle between Russian troops and Swedish forces in Reval.
Another disease has been used as an effective biological weapon in the New World, smallpox. Pizarro is said to have presented South American natives with variola-contaminated clothing in the 15th century. In addition, during the French-Indian War from 1754 to 1767, Sir Geoffrey Amherst, the commander of the British forces in North America, suggested the deliberate use of smallpox to diminish the native Indian population hostile to the British. An outbreak of smallpox in Fort Pitt led to a significant generation of fomites and provided Amherst with the means to execute his plan. On June 24, 1763, Captain Ecuyer of the Amherst subordinate officers provided the Native Americans with smallpox-laden blankets from the smallpox hospital. He recorded it in his journal. I hope it will have the desired effect. As a result, a large outbreak of smallpox occurred among the Indian tribes in the Ohio River Valley. The description of these historical attempts to use diseases in biological warfare illustrates the difficulty of differentiating between a naturally occurring epidemic and an alleged or attempted biological warfare attack, a problem that has continued into present times.
So now we have a timeline, from the 19th and 20th centuries. World War I, German and French agents used glanders and anthrax. World War II, Japan uses plague, anthrax, and other diseases. Several other countries experiment with and develop biological weapons programs. From 1980 to 1988, Iraq uses mustard gas, sarin, and tubin against Iran and ethnic groups inside Iraq during the Persian Gulf War. And in 1995, Shrinkiryo uses sarin gas in the Tokyo subway system. The use of biological warfare became more sophisticated during the 19th century. The conception of Cox's postulates and the development of modern microbiology during the 19th century made possible the isolation and production of stocks of specific pathogens. World War I. Substantial evidence suggests the existence of an ambitious biological warfare program in Germany during World War I. This program allegedly featured covert operations. During World War I, reports circulated of attempts by Germans to ship horses and cattle inoculated with disease-producing bacteria such as anthrax and glanders to the USA and other countries. The same agents were used to infect Romanian sheep that were designated for export to Russia. Other allegations of attempts by Germans to spread cholera in Italy and plague in St. Petersburg in Russia followed. Germany denied all these allegations, including the accusation that biological bombs were dropped over British positions.
So back then, this was something that I didn't really know until I started diving into this stuff, is they were creating these and you couldn't really track, A, where they were coming from, or B, if they were just a contagion that hit the country or if they were, sent that contagion. But today with science, we can literally dive down to the strain and we can track it based on how it was put together, what kind of strain it is. And when we get further in the details, you'll see that we are now able to find and identify where it comes from. So it's a little bit more difficult to pull off these kind of bio warfares that they used to back in the day, because they could do it and there was no way of you tracking where it came from.
Yeah.
So
one of the things about cholera is brutal, because that thing, it'll kill you in days. Like that, yeah. That's a bad way to, that's a bad way to go out, actually.
Yeah, it is. And there is evidence that people did use cholera to wipe out some of the during wars and stuff. So I can imagine that would drop it pretty good. Right? Am I right or am I right?
Bueller, of course you're right. You're Christy.
I'm just kidding. So now we're going to move on to World War II. I want to do a little bit more detail about World War II because they were kind of on to each other by then, and they were starting to point fingers and trying to sign these treaties, quote unquote, that just didn't mean shit. So it's kind of interesting, all the back and forth and the drama that was happening with the biowarfare conversations, because they were all developing shit. So during World War II, some of the mentioned countries began a rather ambitious biological warfare research program. Various allegations and countercharges clouded the events during and after World War II. Japan conducted biological weapons research from approximately 1932 until the end of World War II. The program was under the direction of Shiro Ishii from 1932 to 1942, and then Kitano Masaji from 1942 to 1945. Several military units existed for research and development of biological warfare. The center of the Japanese biowarfare program was known as Unit 731 and was located in Manchuria. The Japanese program consisted more of 150 buildings, 5 satellite camps, and a staff of more than 3,000 scientists. More than 10,000 prisoners are believed to have died as a result of experimental infection during these Japanese programs between 1932 and 1945. At least 3,000 of these victims were prisoners of war, including Korean, Chinese, Mongolian, Soviet, American, British, and Australian soldiers. Many of these prisoners died as a direct effect of experimental inoculation of agents causing gas gangrene, anthrax, meningococcal, which I think is meningitis, cholera, dysentery, or plague. In addition, experiments with tetrodotoxin and extremely poisonous fungal toxin were conducted. In later years, Japanese officials considered these experiments as most regrettable from the viewpoint of humanity. Well, I'm glad later you guys figured that out.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it only took 10,000 of them to die, but I'm glad it was most regrettable.
In December 1949, a Soviet military tribunal in Khabarovsk tried 12 Japanese prisoners of war for preparing and using biological weapons. Major General Kawashima, former head of the Unit 731st, 1st, 3rd, and 4th sections, testified in this trial that no fewer than 600 prisoners were killed yearly at Unit 731. The Japanese government, in turn, accused the Soviet Union of experimentation with biological weapons after several deadly organisms were recovered from Russian spies. Although German medical researchers infected prisoners with disease-producing organisms such as hepatitis A and malaria, no charges were pressed against Germany regarding experimentation with agents of biological warfare. Allegedly, Hitler issued orders prohibiting the development of biological weapons, referring to his own devastating experience with the effects of chemical agents used during World War I. In the USA, an offensive biological warfare program was begun in 1942 under the direction of a civilian agency, the War Reserve Service. The program included a research and development facility at Camp Detrick, Maryland, known today as the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases, testing sites in Mississippi and Utah, and a production facility in Terre Haute, Indiana.
Yeah, so we were kind of late to the game on that. I'm actually pretty surprised. I don't know if we were actually admitting I think we were probably fucking around with that stuff a little earlier than 1942, but that's just my own conspiracy theory that I have not proven, but it
I would probably, I don't think, it's not far off, but I mean, a lot of people, especially you remember with Saddam and, all of this stuff, that was going on. You do have people, or people in government saying, hey, we have treaties not to do this stuff, but I would probably give my left arm, for sure. Cause I feel so strongly about, I know that we're in there thinking up shit on the biological warfare side. Like somebody's getting a check to do this. Like there are people who just get paid to think up shit like this. So I'm pretty sure that our government, all these other governments are, have something up their sleeve on the biological front.
I agree. And I think, like we talked about in the beginning, it's so hard to, back then it was so hard to connect where the stuff was coming from that, there's a reason why we have, terrorist groups after us from other countries. We're not exactly the innocent ones that we like to portray ourselves. So I have a feeling that we probably did a couple of different things like that to control certain outcomes. And we got a little bit of a taste of our own medicine, which we'll see later, but definitely do not believe that we just started thinking about this in 1942 when Japan admits starting it up in, 1932? Is that when it was that they said they started? Yeah. So come on. We were 10 years behind the game. I don't believe it. Y'all full of shit. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead, Moni.
So initially, organisms of interest were anthrax and Brucella suis. Although about 5,000 bombs were filled with anthrax spores were produced at Camp Detrick, The production facility lacked adequate engineering safety measures, stopping a large-scale production of biological weapons during World War II. Oh, darn. During the years
really quick, I was going to go over really quick what anthrax does to you and what Brucella suis does. So anthrax is usually inhaled. It's considered to be the most deadly, inhalation anthrax is considered to be the most deadly form of anthrax. Infection usually develops within a week after exposure, but it can take up to 2 months. Without treatment, only about 10 to 15% of patients with inhalation anthrax survive. However, with aggressive treatment, about 55% of patients survive. So brucellus is normally comes from pigs, but we've of course taken it and developed it to be a contagion for people. People with brucellosis may develop fever, sweats, headaches, back pains, and physical weakness. It doesn't sound as bad as anthrax, but it definitely doesn't sound like a picnic. So no. That's what those do. And that's what we ship over to other people.
Cute. So during the years immediately after World War II, newspapers were filled with articles about disease outbreaks caused by foreign agents armed with biological weapons. During the Korean War, the Soviet Union, China, and North Korea accused the USA of using agents of biological warfare against North Korea. In later years, the USA admitted that it had the capability of producing such weapons, although it denied having used them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the U.S. program expanded during the Korean War from 1950 to 1953 with the establishment of a new production facility in Pine Bluff, Arkansas. In addition, a defensive program was launched in 1953 with the objective of developing countermeasures, including vaccines, anti-sera, and therapeutic agents to protect troops from possible biological attacks.
Nice. All right. So during the late 1960s, public and expert concerns were raised internationally regarding the indiscriminate nature of, unpredictability of, epidemiologic risks of, and lack of epidemiologic control measures for biological weapons. So basically they were like, this is some bullshit. We need some productions. In July 1969, Great Britain submitted a proposal to the UN Committee on Disarmament outlining the need to prohibit the development, production, and stockpiling of biological weapons. Furthermore, the proposal provided for measures for control and inspections, as well as procedures to be followed in case of violation. But, of course, not all the countries adhered to the agreements.
All right, let's talk about some political assassinations with contagions. So during the 1970s, biological weapons were used for covert assassinations. In 1978, a Bulgarian exile named Georgy Markov was attacked and killed in London, England. The assassination later became known as the umbrella killing because the weapon used was a device disguised as an umbrella. This weapon discharged a tiny pellet into the subcutaneous tissue of Markov's leg while he was waiting at a bus stop in London. You know, I was actually watching something about this. There's a thing on Netflix that talks about spy gadgets. And there's actually a part in it that recreated what happened with this guy. And it's so messed up.
Really?
It's called Spy Gadgets or something like that. It dropped maybe a week ago. I definitely would recommend that for people to watch.
Check that out. Yeah.
It's so funny that they recreated what happened with that. And I was like, man, it really shows you, how easy and how vulnerable we are. Because the same way he got hit up with this umbrella, there was these Russian spies who had it's like a tube that was up their sleeve and it would spray like toxic, gas in your face. And it's like, this is, man, getting in deep is pretty treacherous. You know what I mean? But, check that out because there's definitely a recreation of that. So the following day, he became severely ill and died only 3 days after the attack. During the autopsy, the pellet, cross-drilled as if it was designed to contain another material, was retrieved. As it was revealed in later years, this assassination was carried out by the communist Bulgarian Secret Service, and the technology to commit the crime was supplied to the Bulgarians by the Soviet Union. Only 10 days before the assassination of Markov, an attempt to kill another Bulgarian exile, Vladimir Kostov, had occurred in Paris, France. Kostov said that one day when he was leaving a metro stop in Paris, he had felt a sharp pain in his back. When he turned around, he saw a man with an umbrella running away. 2 weeks later, after he had learned of Markov's death, Kostov was examined by French doctors. They removed a similar pellet, which was made from an exotic alloy of iridium and platinum and contained the toxin ricin.
And it didn't open. So his didn't open. So the first guy's pellet opened and he died. Well, his pellet did not open. And that's the only reason why he lived. It was just because it defected. How fucking crazy is that? That's some luck right there.
Hey, situational awareness, y'all. But that's pretty.
Hell yeah.
No kidding.
Gosh, you're just, well.
I can't believe that you just watched a story about this. That's so bizarre.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Random.
It's a good thing on Netflix. So is this a situation where either of you would have chased the person that you would have thought poked you with an umbrella, or you're just like...
Beat him with his own umbrella?
Or you're just like, I don't know what's going on. Because it is just a pinch, but that is kind of weird. Like,
yeah.
I think they've got to know their targets. So that's why it's confusing to me. Like, if you're targets of this government for some reason or another, and somebody, you look down and there's like a stab wound in you, like, wouldn't you go get that checked out, get an x-ray? I don't know.
They're little, but like when you see some of these things, it's like really like a little prick. So when you feel it, it's just a little pinch.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like a bee sting or something.
Yeah, it's just nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's really nothing. Nothing of note.
Okay.
And to be honest, how can you really escape? Like if somebody could just, I guess, spread ricin on like the door at your house.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is some pretty
creepy.
Creative ways.
It's scary when you think about it. And what motivated me to do this story is I was watching this Forensic Files, and we're going to tell the story about this episode later. But this cult like attacked an Oregon town. How these things don't happen more often actually really kind of surprises me. Because when I went in to start doing research, I kept thinking, I'm going to have lists and lists of these things. And there's not a lot. And I don't know, like we said, is it because it's hard to trace, so we don't know what it was? Or is it that, I guess growing contagions is difficult and getting your hands on them is difficult. Pretty
dangerous too, yeah.
So they're less likely. It's easier to fill like an aspirin bottle up with poison pellets, caplets, but it's easier to track. So it just kind of surprises me that we just don't have more of these incidents happening. But they're definitely ramping up thanks to Russia. But
I was going to say, don't tempt fate after the last year or whatever that we've had in the world.
Oh, shit. Well, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you think China did this on purpose. But
yeah.
I think it was just malpractice. I think they were late. I think they messed up. I don't think they did the right protocols in the lab and it got out. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it for now unless they can prove me wrong.
There you go. So, during April of 1979, an epidemic of anthrax occurred among the citizens in Russia. The epidemic occurred among people who lived and worked near a Soviet military microbiology facility called Compound 19. That's so sci-fi. Compound 19. In addition, many livestock died of anthrax in the same area. European and U.S. intelligence suspected that this facility conducted biological warfare research and attributed the epidemic to an accidental release of anthrax spores. Russia ignored a decade of requests for investigation into the deaths. Sounds like some Chernobyl shit right there.
Yep.
However, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, Boris Yeltsin, then the president of Russia, directed his counselor for ecology and health to determine the origin of the epidemic in Sverdlovsk. In May 1992, Yeltsin admitted that the facility had been a part of an offensive biological weapons program and that the epidemic was caused by an accidental release of anthrax spores. He was quoted as saying, "The KGB admitted that our military developments were the cause." Yeltsin and his team returned to Russia to aid in the further investigations.
Yeah. So then in 1995, the program was still in existence and employed 25,000 to 30,000 people. At the same time, several high-ranking officials in the former Soviet military and biopreparat had defected to Western countries. The information provided by these former employees gave further insight to the biological weapons program of the former Soviet Union. After the anthrax incident in Sverdlovsk, the research was continued at a remote military facility in the isolated city of Stefanorsk in Kazakhstan, producing even a more virulent strain of anthrax. My tongue is like, can't do all of this in one sentence. So they took it up to, what is that wasteland up in Russia? That's where this is located. Anyway, they took it up to the icelands of Russia, which thanks for doing that. If you should have been doing that this whole time. But, in 1980, the former Soviet Union expanded its bioweapons research program and was eventually able to weaponize smallpox. This research was conducted at remote facilities in, that's it, Siberia. And very little information is available about the extent and outcome of this research and where it was conducted. Throughout the history of Russia's work with bioweapons, there have been reports of deaths using poisons to any detractors of Russia's leaders, even as recent as January 2021. So now we're going to head over into the bioterrorism attacks. This is not from the government. This is from just crazy ass people or groups, who have decided to either attack the government or attack regular old folk.
In 1984, 751 people suffered food poisoning in Dales, Oregon through the deliberate contamination of salad bars in 10 local restaurants with salmonella. A group of prominent followers of Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, later known as Osho, led by Ma Anand Sheela, had hoped to incapacitate the voting population of the city so that their own candidates would win the 1984 Wasco County elections. That's king of petty. The incident was the first and the single largest bioterrorist attack in the United States history. Having previously gained political control of Antelope, Oregon, Rajneesh's followers, who were based in nearby Rajneesh-Perham, sought election of 2 of the 3 seats of the Wasco County Circuit Court that were up for election in November 1984. Fearing they would not gain enough votes, some Rajneesh-Perham officials decided to incapacitate voters in the Dales, the largest population center in Wasco County. The chosen biological agent was salmonella, which was first delivered through glasses of water to 2 county commissioners and then on a larger scale at salad bars and in salad dressing.
I love salad bars, by the way. That's the only buffet thing I will eat. I was going to
say goodbye to those, though. I don't know if that's going to be a thing.
Sucks. I love me a salad bar. Jason's Deli salad bar. I'll take that over anything on the menu. I love it. Anyway. Very angry.
I didn't even know that Jason's Deli had a salad bar.
Oh, they do. They have.
I don't even know what a Jason's Deli is.
Oh, they have these ginger chocolate muffins on their salad bar that are life. And I just get a ton of lettuce, a ton of tomatoes, tons of they have whole hard-boiled eggs in a giant bucket with like homemade ranch. And I just freaking slap on that ranch on everything and I cover it with sunflower seeds. All the sunflower seeds that you can get, far as the eye can see, and salmonella on the side with my little ginger muffins, and I am in heaven. So, yeah, can you tell I miss it?
For sure.
Hey, I've definitely been a fan of salad bars in the past. You know, salad bars, I don't know why kale is popular, because back in the day, people only garnished a salad bar with kale. Like nobody ate it. It was a garnish. And like now,
that stuff tastes like dirt.
Yes.
Yeah. But as a result of the attack, 751 people contracted salmonella, 45 of whom were hospitalized, but none died.
Salmonella is a creepy one, though. That's the one that when you're pregnant, you're supposed to try at all costs to avoid because it can kill unborn fetuses. So I'm glad that nobody died out of this.
Isn't that like an issue with like chicken? Like, is it like with raw?
Yeah.
Deli
meat.
Yeah.
Tuna.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the tuna is the mercury. There's a lot of things when you get pregnant, they're like, congratulations. Now here's a scroll of shit you can't have. And you're like, what? It's like, you can't have Subway. You can't have any deli.
And then you get everybody's fucking opinions on like, the incidence of salmonella is so low. And it's like, yeah, but it obviously killed someone's baby or it wouldn't be on the list. So I'm probably not going to take that risk,
Well, I'm glad you had nice people that were telling you to buck the system because everyone's like, I would get like a Diet Coke and I would have like 3 the entire pregnancy and they'd be like, you're killing your baby. And I'm like, okay. Like, seriously, even people said that if I raised my hands over my head, my umbilical cord would choke the baby. So,
not funny, but
like, it's sad. I'm like, what? You're crazy. I'm going to put my towels up now. Like, no, you can't raise up your arms over your head. It'll choke the baby.
Shoot, though. It sounds like you got treated well, at least. Everybody was like cut to me in the gym at 8.5 months. Still lifting like an idiot. Anyway.
It was like being around a lot of conspiracy theorists, that's for sure. But anyway.
We've gone a little far in the pregnant women can do anything side of things now. It's like.
Totally. I know. It's like, I'm like, how did all my kinfolk from like ancient Scotland figure this out then if they couldn't even raise their arms? They were like playing rock throwing games while they're pregnant and you're telling me I can't put my towels up? Like, give me a fucking
birth in a field and keep going.
I don't
find a happy medium. Anyway. So, at a press conference in September of 1985, Ranish accused several of his followers of participation in this and other crimes, including an aborted plan in 1985 to assassinate the United States attorney, and he asked state and federal authorities to investigate. Oregon Attorney General David B. Frohnmeyer set up an interagency task force composed of Oregon State Police and Federal Bureau of Investigation and executed search warrants in Ranish Perum. A sample of bacteria matching the contaminant that had sickened the town residents was found in a Ranish Perum medical laboratory. 2 leading Ranish Perum officials were convicted on charges of attempted murder and served 29 months of a 20-year sentences in a minimum security federal prison. That is a lot of saying the words Ranish Perum, and I should have really made my mouth get some exercise, some stretches before I went into that one.
That's okay. I wanted to do just a really quick explanation of Rajneeshis. Is that how you say it? Rajneeshis.
Oh, Rajneeshis. Okay.
So Rajni is a man from India who started basically a movement there. And they all were getting in, like, becoming larger than that they felt comfortable being on India's radar warranted. So they all decided to move to Oregon. And when we're talking about this group, we're not just talking about people from India. People, like, I just read an article from this kid who his mom, they're from the UK. His parents packed everything up and sold their farm and moved to India to be with this man. Like, he was apparently amazing. And he really was a good guy. Like, he turned these people in. So he had a number 2 girl where is her name? She was the other lady Ma Anand Sheila. And she was the number 2. He kind of got into himself. And by the way, this cult was like orgy cult. Like, they just fucked each other 24 hours a day and built buildings. Like, they either were building things to hang out in or having sex. And nobody had partners. Everybody was just fucking everybody. It was crazy. And, because it was a free love cult. So then Ma Anand takes over while, Rajneeshi is driving his 40 Rolls Royces around. He had 40 or 80, maybe it was 80 Rolls Royces that he would just be driven around in all day through the compound. He was busy. And so this lady took over, and she's the one that started doing all this shit. So she was kind of the de facto cult leader. And it's crazy. And if you want to watch, I haven't watched this yet. I watched another, I watched the Forensic Files. This is the one that was the Forensic Files episode that I watched. And there is, and I haven't seen this, and I've seen it a million times on Netflix, but I didn't watch it, called Wild Wild Country. It's about the Rajneeshi cult. And so I've got to go back and find it and watch it. I saw it advertised a million times, but I was like, this doesn't look interesting. And it was really fucking awesome. So I'm like, damn it. So now I got to go back and watch that. So that is the deal with this cult. They're really fucking crazy. These people did end up going to prison, and Rajneeshi turned them in. So he was all busy driving his Rolls Royces and then realized people are getting hurt and attempted murder and getting a little bit too crazy. And he decided to just take a step back and pull the plug. So that's that. So now we're going to talk about Shinrikyo.
Yeah, so Shinrikyo, the Japanese cult behind the Tokyo sarin attack. Tokyo, 20th of March, 1995. Morning rush hour. Millions of commuters step out into a bright spring morning and onto one of the world's busiest underground systems. Also on board the trains, 5 bags filled with liquid nerve agent left by members of a doomsday cult. The packages were leaking. Passengers felt stinging fumes hitting their eyes.
So the toxin struck victims down in a matter of seconds, leaving them choking and vomiting, some blinded and paralyzed. 13 people died and at least 5,800 were injured in 5 coordinated attacks on 3 train lines. The cause was sarin gas, a nerve agent developed by the Nazis. It was the worst domestic terror attack ever carried out on Japanese soil. The culprits were Shinrikyo, the obscure religious group who believed the end of the world was coming. After years on death row, the cult's leader, Shoko Ashara, was put to death on July 6, 2018, along with several of his followers. So, Shinrikyo, his name means supreme death. That cult began in the 1980s as a spiritual group mixing Hindu and Buddhist beliefs, later working in elements of like the apocalyptic Christian prophecies, which is what they always do to keep you. Like they have to introduce that fear factor for you to stay like kind of attached to them because only they can save you. The group's founder, Shoko Ashara declared himself to be both Christ and the first enlightened one since Buddha. And so that is that one. And do you guys want to talk any more about Shinrikyo? I would love to do a episode on the entire cult. It's fascinating. It really is. Like the stuff that they did and the self-discipline, and it's amazing how they worked. A very weird cult. And it wasn't a very fun cult. Like, normally they kind of pull you in with, like, fun at the beginning, and then it turns to shit. But no, you came in there knowing that this was not fun. So it's fascinating how it kind of got off the ground. But I guess it's, like, cultural, where sometimes people want to have the discipline and the structure that they were putting out there. So we're going to talk a little bit about the 2001 anthrax attacks. I kind of forget because the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon kind of eat up a lot of what was happening then, but I forget that there were actually contagion attacks happening after that. Like that kind of falls through the cracks, but I remember thinking about how scared I was during all of this. Like, oh my God, first that happened and now this was happening. It just felt like we were so vulnerable. But, that's definitely one of the ones that we talk about when we think about bioterrorism. And, before 9/11, government agencies were not concerned with bioterrorism. They felt even studying it was repugnant. Labs studied how to respond to large-scale contagion attacks. After the atrocities of the World Trade Centers and Pentagon on 9/11, the attacks continued via the Postal Service. So now we're going to discuss, the 2001 anthrax attacks.
On October the 4th, 2001, Florida health officials reported an anthrax case. A 63-year-old photo editor from Fort Lauderdale. The patient was desperately ill with pneumonia and meningitis and had been hospitalized. He died a week later. Where he might have acquired the infection was a puzzle. Anthrax pneumonia could result only from inhaling anthrax spores, but no such spores had ever been detected anywhere east of the Mississippi River. State and federal officials thought in vain to find a source for the infection. Little thought was given to the possibility that this could be the result of a terrorist attack. But then a week later, on October the 12th, a case of cutaneous anthrax in an NBC network employee was diagnosed in New York and reported. Her illness actually had begun on September the 25th. She recalled having opened a threatening letter that had been sent to the network and that it had powder in it. The letter was retrieved. Anthrax spores were present. It was the first recognition that a bioterrorist attack had taken place. And remember when all that stuff was going on, how they were talking about there was different types like weaponized or whatever
yes.
version of
and
it.
I remember it being like every day there was a fear of an anthrax thing. I know there were only like 3 total, but the other places were opening things that had powder in them, and it was just almost constant that you were seeing on the news that another letter has been discovered, another package, but none of it was anthrax. But it just kind of shows you kind of where you are thrown into this chaos and fear of just opening your mail.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's the vulnerability. So.
Yep.
2 more anthrax letters bearing the same Trenton postmark were dated October 9th, 3 weeks after the first mailing. The letters were addressed to 2 Democratic senators, Tom Dashley of South Dakota and Patrick Leahy of Vermont. At the time, Dashley was the Senate Majority Leader and Leahy was the head of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Dashley's letter was opened by an aide, Grant Leslie, on October 15th, and the government mail service was shut down. The unopened Leahy letter was discovered in an impounded mail bag on November 16th. The eventual outcome was 22 cases of anthrax, including 5 who died. All had been exposed to at least 5 envelopes bearing anthrax powder. Sheesh.
And I think that's not a lot of people when you compare over the 2,000 that died on 9/11, but it just it was like a sequel of fear, like a whole new way of like being scared. It was all happening at the same time. And, you go years without something like this happening. And then all of this is happening within months of each other. It was crazy. I just remember all of this, it was, before I had kids. And I just remember being so just blown away at like how that was all happening. It just seemed so unreal.
Yeah.
And I had completely forgot about that part. I really did. So it's crazy that when I was researching that, I was like, oh my God, I forgot all about the anthrax part of that. We kind of don't talk about it anymore because the plane, and the buildings of the Trade Center and the Pentagon, of course, overshadow that. But damn, that was all just really fucked up.
Yeah, for sure. So today in Russia, Novichok. The name Novichok means newcomer in Russian and applies to a group of advanced nerve agents developed by the Soviet Union in the 1970s and the 1980s. They were as fourth-generation chemical weapons. They were known as fourth-generation chemical weapons and were developed under a Soviet program codenamed Foliant. Novichok's existence was revealed by a chemist, Dr. Mirzanayev, sure, we're going to go with that, in the 1990s via Russian media. He later defected to the U.S. where he published the chemical formula in his book, State Secrets. Well, don't publish that. Don't give other people ideas.
No shit. Nobody needs to know about that. So this is the stuff that the Russians are currently using when we hear all of these news stories about people being poisoned. In 1999, defense officials from the U.S. traveled to Uzbekistan to help dismantle and decontaminate one of the former Soviet Union's largest chemical weapons testing facilities. According to Dr. Mirazyev, the Soviets used the plant to produce and test small batches of Novichok. These nerve agents were designed to escape detection by international inspectors. Novichoks were designed to be more toxic than other chemical weapons, so some versions would begin to take effect rapidly, in the order of 30 seconds to 2 minutes. The main route of exposure is likely to be through inhalation or indigestion, though they could also be absorbed through the skin. So here is a quick little news story. September 2020. The German government says Russia's opposition leader, Alexei we all know about this one, Navalny, has been poisoned with the Novichok nerve agent. The most prominent critic of Russian President Vladimir Putin was airlifted to Berlin for treatment after falling ill during a flight in Russia's Siberia region last month. He has been in a coma since. So he is the guy, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, but I've watched pieces of it, who made this documentary about Putin, and it is not pretty. Like, it shows, like, they flew drones over all his mansions and palaces, and basically they're exposing him and the money he spends on himself and the people that are close to him, and Russians aren't doing so well. So it's kind of an issue with them, and they are, I almost think, in a way, taking a kind of a page from what we're doing, and they are protesting, and it is ugly, ugly, ugly right now. They're getting beaten, they're getting taken, they're never, people aren't seeing them again. We think our police are bad. Let me tell you, if you watch these videos, it will break your heart. They're running after people and beating the shit out of them when they see them. They don't even need to see them protesting. They've had it. So they're just like, if I see you when you're not supposed to be here at this time, you're going to get the shit beat out of you. And, it's ugly and it's not pretty. I mean, you just see bloodied people everywhere, but they just keep protesting. Like they're done. I will be very curious to see how that works out, but yeah, some crazy shit's going on over there. And when you've got this nerve agent in your pocket, I guess you can stay in power forever, right?
Yeah. That's yeah. I mean, it's pretty easy to kill, but I guess you can stay in power forever, but at some point you're going to thin the herd enough that there's nobody to be in power over, if you think about it.
Yeah. Well, Russia's a big place, so I don't think he's got too much to worry about that. And, you've got those people that aren't going to cause a ruckus. They're just going to do their thing. They love Putin, just like any country. You've got ones that love the person and you got ones that hate them. And it just depends on where the country is as to the turnout of that. Unfortunately, in Russia, the people aren't really allowed to choose who their leader is. And I think they're starting to get tired of that. And any who detracts against Putin, this is basically their, they know that. They know when they do it. This is going to be their future, is they will be probably poisoned. It's been happening for years. And this was the most recent one, and it's causing quite a bit of uproar in Russia right now. Like, I was just looking online this weekend of the protests that are happening there. They've been going on for weeks, and it's a sad situation, but I think, thanks to news and social media and the power of, getting information out, they were seeing what happened to him when he decided he dared expose a little bit of the corruption that's going on. And now, they're starting to kind of wake up to, try to discover some sort of power that they could have. So it'll be an interesting, I think, to watch how that all unfolds. And, from what I've seen, Russia's been doing this for quite a while, poisoning people. So with nerve agents and all those other things. So with that, did you guys watch 12 Monkeys for the homework? That was the homework I gave them.
I did.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, I saw it.
Mm-hmm. So
I saw the movie back in the day. So my first time watching it again is probably when you had recommended that we check it out.
Yeah.
And, I'm curious to see what y'all thought about it. I never thought it was awesome back then, and I figured I'm going to rewatch it, and now I can, understand it better. But it's definitely one of those where you can keep going back. It's just not a watch through once. You're not going to figure it out.
No.
So it was one of those things where if you look at, there's videos, and I'm sorry off the top of my head, I can't remember who the director was. What was his name? Gosh.
Oh, I know, but you're the director of 12 Monkeys. You know what? I don't know, but they're calling him brilliant because they're saying that his vision was so timeless. Does that make sense? I don't know. They're just saying it's very timeless.
He's a very creative and interesting person. But this is one. It almost seems like it's kind of ahead of its time because now a lot of people are playing with time travel and stuff now, but. It's definitely some interesting performances from people. I'll definitely give it that, though.
Yeah. So this movie is very 90s. If you follow 90s movies, you're going to see a pattern. They're very, very dark, and they have a weird filter on them that I don't know how to explain. If you think about this movie, you think about Boondock Saints, and our romance movies were tainted in a weird way. We just had a very weird look on life. It was just a strange time. And so it's a very 90s movie, but I like a lot of the story because it comes from a book. It's not just a movie that was created out of thin air. It's from a short story. And this movie was released on December 29th, 1995. And basically the premises is traveling back in time isn't simple, as James Cole, played by Bruce Willis, learns the hard way. Imprisoned in the 2030s, James is recruited for a mission that will send him back to the 1990s. Once there, he's supposed to gather information about a nascent plague that is about to exterminate the vast majority of the world's population. But aside from the manic Jeffrey, who's played by Brad Pitt, he gets little in the way of cooperation, not least from medical gatekeepers like Dr. Catherine Rayleigh. So I loved this movie in the 90s, and I went back and I watched it again, and I still liked it. And I think the concept of the movie is timeless. But it is very 90s. It is, you can't get away from that. It has this kind of weird, kitschy music to it. And and sometimes the characters try to do weird, dark humor that just doesn't play well, especially now. I don't know why we thought that was so great in the 90s. But anyway, what did you think, Moni? You had never seen it before.
I had never seen it before. It is very 90s, though. I mean, I've obviously watched a lot of 90s movies. And it needed a lot of editing for length. If that would have been a really helpful. You can't do any better though than performances by Brad Pitt and oh my God, the bald guy. Bruce Willis, that guy. There's a lot of Bruce Willis butt in it. There's a lot of Bruce Willis getting hosed off.
His back scrubbed over
there's multiple scenes.
Blood.
Again, where I say editing would have been great.
Do either of you think, because Brad Pitt was nominated for an Oscar for that, and I'm like, I don't know,
over the top, his movements and everything. It just felt like a non-editing, Brad Pitt free for all, as far as every time he's on screen, he's going to be 10,000 times extra than what he needs to be. But
I think he was trying to pull off a dark, Robin Williams. Like, I really think that's what he was trying to do. And I don't hate him for it. I think at the time,
it was 90s. Everything was extra.
Yeah. It worked, but it was dark. Everything was dark extra. Like, it was not like 80s extra. It was weird. It's like we pivoted in the pendulum swing, and we were just like, we're getting away from the 80s glamour sparkles to this weird underbelly dark extra. And that is the exact 12 Monkeys is that movie. Like, that is the epitome of that time for sure. And like Boondock Saints, like it's one of my favorite movies. And so it really does kind of bring me back to that type of vibe and feel. And I love the story though. I love the whole, he starts to question his own sanity. And I think he honestly is. I don't think Bruce Willis's character is pretending to question his sanity. I think he's truly starting to get confused and hoping that he's crazy. Like, he doesn't want to live in that other time. He doesn't want these things to happen. He doesn't want these people that he has, this woman he's got a connection to die. And so he's hoping that it's not true. But also there's a lot of extra shit that just kind of blurs that out. So you don't even really get that message when you're watching it. You have to really like sit down and think like, wow, he was just trying to hope that these things weren't true, and while he was also actively, if they are true, discovering, facts and figures. And there's just so much that you can't ignore. So, and I love Madeline Stowe. I love her. I don't know what happened to her, but
she's even more beautiful now, I swear.
Yeah, in the 90s, she was like an it girl. She was in a lot of stuff, and I just loved her. So those three characters, I don't know. I thought her character was great because she's like, of course, any doctor is not going to believe that. But these things are being forced in her face that she just can't deny. And when she sees that picture of him laying there in like 1917, and she's just like, no, like that can't, she's having to come to terms that he's not lying and he's not crazy. And so then she turns into like this crazy person, then she's acting crazy. So I like the story. It didn't play in as what my memories had of it, if that makes any sense. Like, have you ever just loved a movie and then you watch it 20 years later and you were like, oh, but that was kind of,
yeah, you were like, it's such a great movie. And I'm glad I watched it, but it was like, oh, okay, this was built up a little higher. I also was sad because I was going to get some hot, like younger Brad Pitt, but obviously his character has crazy contacts in his eyes. And so I was very sad about that. I got Bruce Willis butt, but no hot Brad Pitt. So it's like, what's going on?
I mean, I love Brad Pitt's character though, because he's so fucking crazy. And when he's like when he's like, his dad's like, you're fucking crazy or whatever he says, he's a scientist and everybody's looking around and he's like, shut up, Dad. Like, it's so like, I don't know why. I was tickled by it. But, I mean, I love Seven, that movie Seven. And that is that's the 90s stuff that I truly love. But this has had a special place in my heart, and it still does. It's not gone. It's just seen by a different lens, I think. But the situation is that there is a biological, or a bioterroristic situation that happens. And that's the whole movie, is that they're trying to go back in time to figure out where it came from so they can figure out how to help their time, because they all know they can't change the past. He starts to think that he can, but the people sending him back know that they can't. And they're just trying to get information of where it came from so that they can better understand it. And he's over here confused and maybe trying to change the patterns, which I understand. When you meet the people and you're in that time, how would you not want to try to change those things? So anyway, I get the message, and I like the message, and then I like the bioterrorism aspect of it. Again, very 90s, but anybody who hasn't seen it, I think should watch it. I think it's a watchable piece, and if you like 90s movies, this is definitely a 90s movie. So with that, we're going to talk about a few other biowarfare, bioterrorism movies. And I listed a few, and I see Yardley thought of a few more. The Crazies, which is an accidental contagion released with government cover-up. I've only seen this one time. It's been a while, so I'm trying to remember back. I know it's got some crazy shit, like it turns people into like weird, diseased, murdering people. Have you guys seen that one?
Yes, I love that one. I've rewatched it just because I like that one. It's really well done.
Yes. Okay. Yardley, have you seen that one?
No, I have not.
Really? It's a good one.
Wow.
It's got some hot people in it too.
I think I've only seen one thing on the list that you have here, Christy, and there's a second thing that's on the list that I started reading the book and I didn't realize that there was a movie for it until I saw your list. So I'll wait till you get there.
The Blob, which of course is a classic. It's the alien contagion that the government wants control of. So it's not necessarily bioterrorism, but it's a contagion that is hit the earth, that is turning people into blobs, or the blob is eating them, and the government is trying to, at the people's disposal, get control of this. So they're not very sympathetic about the people dying. They're more interested in trying to get a hold of it. So this is one I've seen 2 times, and I really like this movie. It's called Right at Your Door. And the premises is several dirty bombs detonate in LA, and the race to get home ensues. It's really good. It's really good for an indie. It's an indie movie. It's just, it tugs at your heart. And I just, for some reason, because I have such a long commute, I just kind of relate to this one. It's like, I think, oh my gosh, what if this happened in Atlanta? I have to get from south of Atlanta to north of Atlanta. Like, how would I do that? And then just like people in neighborhoods and how they react to everything that's happening. And it's just a really interesting story. Resident Evil, I'm going to assume this is the one that Yardley's watched.
Because, I love that one too.
Yeah.
Aren't they rebooting it? Have you guys heard anything about that?
They've got so many
They've had so many like series, but I thought they were like redoing it completely.
But wait, is Resident Evil actually, Christy, I haven't seen it because isn't this the series that's got that guy who puts his wife in like every movie?
Yeah, but she's Mila Jovovich.
She's good in this one. She really is.
I recommend the first 2 probably. They did a really good job. I mean, obviously I didn't play the video game a ton, but I thought they did a really good job adapting it. And then of course it gets crazy after that.
The one that I watched was The Blob because obviously like, that was like right up. Yeah, I mean The Blob, but yeah, the Resident, I can't with Mila. Like
I think she's great in this. Some other things, no, but this I thought she was good. She played the part well for the game, because everybody is really into that game. And then the last one that I have is the Andromeda Strain. And this movie and the conversations around the lab. This is an actual lab in New Mexico that exists. There is a mountain in New Mexico that has been carved out and turned into a laboratory, and it's top secret, like literally top secret. The people that work there aren't allowed to talk about what they do with their families or anything. And Los Alamos, and it's an interesting town, let me just tell you. But this movie is scientists work in the lab to find out what's killing residents in a small New Mexican town. So that's a pretty good movie too, and the book is good. So did you say you read the book too? Yeah, it's a good
the Michael Crichton joint. Yeah, that's. I'm gonna have to check out that movie. And the thing that I put down is actually something that's currently on Netflix. It's called Unlocked, and for the most part, this is about the prevention of a bioattack happening in London. And this movie stars Noomi Rapace, Toni Collette, and Orlando Bloom is also in the movie. And there's a few other faces that you'll probably recognize. And you're like, I know I've seen this person somewhere before. But it's a pretty solid movie, pretty fast paced. It's not too long. It's about an hour and a half, but it's on Netflix, and I would definitely recommend people check it out. I mean, check it out, if not for anything, but to watch, Noomi Rapace run around pistol whipping people and looking good doing it. So that's definitely a recommend for me.
Yeah, she always looks good in every movie. When I think about that movie, I hate when I can't remember it. Prometheus. Damn. I mean, wow.
Yeah, she's got a decent catalog of stuff, and there's stuff that she's in that's not that I think that's in Swedish and things like saying like different languages, but she's got a decent catalog of stuff. I don't think that I've seen. Well, there's like one movie that I saw her in that was just like I don't know about that, but she does a lot of like artsy, crazy stuff. Like if you kind of dig deep. But yeah, it's definitely a recommend. I think if anything, it will definitely not be the worst thing that you've watched, over the last,
it's got good ratings. I'll check it out. It's got like a 6.3 on IMDb, so I'll check it out. That's kind of it with the bioterrorism. I will tell you, I'm just 45 minutes in on the new season that just dropped of Crime Scene, The Vanishing at the Cecil Hotel. And it's really well done. So if you haven't watched that yet, yes, it's crazy. It's, we've already done.
When did it drop? I just saw the trailer of it last night and that it was available, but how long has it been available?
I think it was just been the last 2 days. Because I was just in there a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm on episode 1 and I've got 4 minutes left. So
I'm actually going to go watch it like literally after this. My husband's been arguing with me all day because we've watched so much like crappy television on the Cecil Hotel, and he's like, "We've seen this already." And I'm like, "I don't give a fuck." I'm like, first of all, we haven't seen this before, and even if we have, y'all can go to another room if you don't want to watch it. So.
Yeah, so they do a really great angle on the girl Alicia, the one that died there. And they read her social media posts. It's good. It kind of reminds me of the American, what was the one about, what's his name that killed his kids and put him in the oil well and killed his pregnant wife. American something. Anyway, cause her stuff's so much on social media that a lot of the show was, revolving around their social media. She's got, she had a Tumblr account. And so you've got a lot of like hearing from her and hearing her thoughts before she disappeared. Mm-hmm. And it's done really well. And they have the timelines are amazing. And unless you know the story like we do, because we've done episodes on this one, you don't know what's coming. So if you don't know the story, watch it because they are completely tight-lipped on what the turnout is. There is no indication in any way of how this thing's gonna end. And if you know the story, but holy shit, like, I know what's gonna happen, but I keep watching this going, if you don't know what's gonna happen, you have no idea what's about to hit. And, I'm
also still hoping that the series will, now that they're talking to the actual manager, cause I think I told you guys, we did that whole show on the Cecil. I went and visited and it's closed down and there's like all kinds of rumors of like, is it closed down forever? Is it just under renovation? What's going on? And this was pre-pandemic that it closed down. And so I want to hear the manager say like, what's the future of the hotel and when can I come visit? Cause I really want to go visit. So
the manager so far that I've seen is just, it's an old manager. It's not the manager that is the manager now. She was the manager then. So she's telling the story.
So she was the manager. Brand. Interesting.
No, she was the manager for 10 years and she was the manager during this time. So she's telling the story. So we have the detectives telling the story. We have bloggers telling the story. We have the hotel manager telling the story. They got workers talking about it. There's tons of great angles on it. And so definitely you guys should definitely check it out. If you like true crime and there's a hint of the unknown and kind of a weird, like they're very much open and leaving it open to interpretation of what's going on. Mm-hmm. As in, is it cursed? Is it haunted? Is it just, because it's surrounded by 3,000 homeless people. Like what is it? So they're very much not very cryptic about what it could be. So
I can tell you, having been there, the vibe, like I haven't gone inside, but the whole building, it's just a sad area. And I don't know, like, obviously I had a bias knowing what all has happened there, but the building is just ick. I don't know how else to explain it.
Well, they even show video footage from the 20s, on up, and just how it decayed, and how it was basically a crack house and a prostitute house. And, and then they've even got people who were staying there after she went missing. And I'm only assuming, because they stayed there for 2 weeks, that they're telling the story leading up to what we know happens and how they find out it happens. And so they've got all angles in there. And so I'm hooked. Like, I was like, damn, I got to turn it off and record the show. Like, I was like, shit. So definitely check that out. That's the only thing I can really recommend at this time. I don't know if you guys have anything that sticks out in your mind that you want to throw out there, but you're welcome.
Well, I did remember the name real quick. It's Spycraft on Netflix. So if you want to see some reenactments of some of these, like attacks.
Spycraft?
Rice and Pin, Spycraft. It dropped on, I think, January the 6th. So outside of that, I got nothing.
Thank you. That's great. I love new stuff. Okay. What you got, Moni? Anything?
No, I'm headed to watch, like I said, the Cecil Hotel thing now. I've just been living in a world I've caught up on all of the Law and Order SVUs, which I want to say is more of a testament on pandemic than it is on me, but who knows? So everything is now, like, my kids even know, like, the donk around the house. They're always just like, and then the crimes occurred, donk. So anyway, we're losing it a little bit in quarantine, but yeah,
I understand.
That's what I've been watching.
I was going to try to recommend the Forensic Files episode. Yeah, here it is. Forensic Files. I was trying to find the one that... Anyway, I wish I could find the one that started it all, that started this episode for Rajneeshi. And it's that when I watched that episode, I was so fascinated with how they were literally spraying salad bars with spray, like it was in a spray bottle, and they were just spraying it over the food. Like, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And so I just thought that was fascinating, and that's what started this whole episode. So if you guys look into Forensic Files, you'll find it, and it's a great episode. They did a great rundown, so check that out. And I love me some Forensic Files, so I gotta always check that out. But with that, I would like to say, please give us a review, a 5-star, preferably. No, I'm not afraid. I ain't too proud to beg. And support our little podcast. We're doing the best we can, but we appreciate our listeners giving us lots of good support. And we are chewing along with the whole trademark situation. We'll see how that pans out. And with that, I would also like to acknowledge that February is Black History Month, and we are openly acknowledging, and I've been researching and reading, lots of fun history things and stories. I think we've been denied a lot of Black history growing up, and so I've been trying to do my due diligence of learning some of that because I didn't have it. I didn't have any. So, read a book, read some articles, watch a movie, learn a little bit about it. So
absolutely. And actually there was something that I was looking into, because I have a lot of, I have some books here on African mythology, and I'm going to try to do some research on, some like scary stories, things that were passed down from the continent over here. So, but yeah, we all got to educate ourselves, and, we all, we need to keep it moving. We're stronger if we have knowledge and aren't necessarily ignorant of different people's experiences and plight. So we'll just keep carrying on being silly in the name in February. But yeah, thanks for the shout out on the.
Of course.
On the.
So it's important. It's important to keep yourself educated always. Yeah. So I'm learning. Yep. I'm not a librarian like y'all, or we're working for, big time corporations like Yardley, but I just like to make sure that I understand everybody. And I think that's what's really wrong with people today, is we've kind of bubbled ourselves up into our own bullshit and have zero understanding of what our neighbor is going through. So let's not do that. And with that, I would like you guys to to follow our Facebook group and our Facebook page, Creepin' It Real. And you can find me at Creepin' It Christy and Creepin_it on Twitter. Creepin' It Christy's on Instagram. And Moni, where can we find you?
I am at Moni Bear across the board, and you can keep up with me also at creatorsassemble.org.
Yardley?
You can follow me on Twitter at militant_marker.
All right, you guys, that's it. So I'm glad that you supported our getting our science on today. I like to do a few little weird things here and there. Try to keep
so much fun.
Yeah, and learn a few things, learn about weapons. If you start coughing, it might not be COVID. It might be anthrax. So
I don't think that's better, but you know, I'm
gonna try. I mean, were one of you, was somebody supposed to be out of town this weekend? Because now I'm thinking, you know, I was trying to find something because I guess the next show's on me, right?
Yeah.
I was going to try to find something new that I know nobody has seen, but I haven't figured that out yet. And it's already Wednesday. So I might have to,
I think you should do a review on Promising Young Woman. I have it. I can share it with you. I think I shared it with Moni. It's a horror movie and it's crazy, and I think you might actually like it. You can watch it and see if you decide what you want to do.
Is it on
It's in theaters, but I got a hold of it, and so I have a copy of it. And it might have already been released by now because, you know, things are.
It's $20 still. Yeah.
Okay, I have the file. I have it, and I shared it with you, Moni, right? Or do you still?
Yeah, but I haven't tried to open it yet.
Is it like a zip file or something small, or what is it? Is it like a? I don't know. We'll send it. Like if there's a link, is it just a link to it or something, or?
We shall go.
I don't know. I need to go look and see. Rick does all that for me.
Open that shit up on your computer first.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's Rick. He's not gonna spam us or anything, but it's a great movie. It's kind of dark and fucked up and has a lot of weird shit in it. So, and it's something probably a lot of people have seen because they're not paying $20 to watch it, but it's definitely worth a watch. I really liked it, and I'm going to go on record to say that it could possibly be my favorite movie of 2021. And I'm saying it this early in the game, knowing what's ahead. So I'm putting it out there that it could be.
Go ahead and send it.
Right.
Listen, I'll check it out. I mean,
then you can find another movie. You will not hurt my.
I'll try.
No, you can get enough, 'cause it's my way, even if there is highway. I was afraid that you're coming